to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast, where we share games. I'm your host, Zach.
And I am your host, Tyler. We are here to wrap up our Nontendo series of 3D platformers and our series of smoothie-style sour ales from Wild Mind Ales. We have the, I'm sorry, I have looked at this name like 9 times already, Hanai Ohana, which is pineapple, orange, guava, and of course milk sugar, like all the rest of them.
Hook me up.
I have a feeling this is going to be very sweet.
Just like you. That's not true. He's not a sweet person. He's a kind person. He's a kind person. But he's not a sweet
That's a distinction, person. Yes. That's a good distinction.
Neither would I call myself a sweet person, though, so...
You want some of that yeast in there, that chunkiness?
Dude, give me that
just
globule.
Like think that is?
I'm so sorry for all you listening on audio only. This is what some, if they were being kind, would call hazy.
Yes, it's very dark. Yeah, it's chunky. It's chunky,
wet
man.
Paint. Oh boy, that's sweet. Wow.
That's very sweet.
That's a little too sweet for the Zach.
I mean, it's a good juice. This is straight up pineapple juice. Which, actually, it's better pineapple juice than Pint House. They've got a new pineapple IPA, which is almost like Dole pineapple juice out of the can. It was not good.
I'm so sorry.
Don't try that.
Pint House, for those that don't know, has pretty much one of the 3 staple Austin beers. It's the electric jellyfish.
What do you think the 3 are?
I don't know off the top of my head. That's one that is, I'd say, probably like Pearl Snap from...
Oh, really? I don't think I'd put Pearl Snap there. I think I would put, like, in order of, basic people to people who like craft, I would do, what is it? Oh, the Hefeweizen. Live Oak.
Live
Oak Hefeweizen.
Yep, that's a good point. I forgot about
probably,
that. Because it's one of the earliest.
Yeah, probably Blood and Honey.
That's not Austin, though.
Oh, is it?
It's Dallas, yeah. I think it's Dallas or Houston. It's not Austin.
Okay. All right. Then I'd put Pearl Snap over there, and then jellyfish is everywhere, man.
Jellyfish, and it's like $9 a pour some places.
Yeah.
Like it's...
Yeah, I mean, a 4-pack is like $13.
Yeah. But I would say it's not
IPA.
even my favorite Pint House. My favorite Pint House is actually they have an Irish stout there.
I have not tried many of their beers.
I would highly recommend you go through some of their non-IPA selections.
I should just go there.
Yeah, because their pizza's
There's one
not
nearby.
that bad.
Yeah.
I like that stuff. But yeah, if you get a chance, anybody, try I think it's the Bearded Seal and the Bearded Seal is their dry Irish stout. And they have it on nitro sometimes too.
Okay.
I would say it's a little bit too, like, not big enough to warrant the nitro, but it's not like what we had when we went to 600 degrees. We got those nitro stouts that were just water.
Yeah, they tasted like nothing in your mouth.
I do think it's better than those nitro, but I'd say it's best not nitro still.
Okay. Well, about this, see, I did it again. Hanai Ohana from Wild Mind. This is not my favorite one so far because it's barely beer. It's just alcohol. This is closer to a mimosa. This is something that I would drink on Sunday morning easily.
Something you give to Mr. Incredible on his way to the island?
Sure.
Would you care for mimosa? I don't know why that has stuck with me for so long.
What has always stuck with me is...
pull yourself together!
I saw that movie when I was very young, but whatever her name is, I don't know, not Mrs. Incredible, but the girl with the silver hair. The
vixen.
Whoever she is. Yeah, she's a vixen. It's like, this is a very sexy Disney movie. What is happening? But now I know better. Now I see Mrs. Incredible and think this is a very sexy Disney movie.
Exactly. That's the real answer.
Yeah.
The internet
was crazy for her booty.
Yeah, the thirst is real.
The thirst, yes.
All that to say, we're talking about Psychonauts
we
too
are.
today.
There's plenty of innuendo in that as well.
Yeah. So this is just some, context. neither Tyler and I have finished the first Psychonauts game. He's played the first 2 chapters.
Yeah, I guess like the first
areas.
2 levels. Yeah, the first 2 mines.
Yeah, and so he has some exposure to it, but definitely wouldn't call us fans of the series or anything. Haven't played the Rhombus of Ruin
No.
VR game or anything. So this is pretty much the first one. We are both at the very end of the game. We're at the final mind.
Yeah, both of us got there this morning. We didn't have time, but
Yeah.
we got through to almost the very end. We are in the final level, and we'll probably finish that tonight. I think I will.
I'm going to finish it tonight as well.
Yeah.
So obviously, then you can assume that we both liked this game. I would definitely recommend that if you are interested, that you go check it out. We will start just talking kind of our general takes and some gameplay. We will get into spoiler territory though.
Yes.
So that if you are curious, so like what I'd call like low grade spoilers, stuff like the gameplay, the mechanics, the general setting and areas. That we'll talk about from here on out, and then things that I'd call more, later game things that happen, surprises, interesting things.
And some of the narrative stuff, maybe some of the silly conversations.
Exactly.
Which
that will come
are aplenty.
a little bit later. So I'll be sure to mark it, but just, make sure that you guys, if you're interested in playing this game, know that, listen accordingly.
Definitely.
So let's dig into it. And Tyler and I both had a very similar reaction to this game in that... And I'd argue, in a really raw sense, this is a game that is so much more than just the gameplay.
So much more.
And really, I would argue almost everything that makes Psychonauts so memorable and the original such a cult classic, from what I know now, is the not gameplay.
Yeah.
And I would argue that this is a game that if I wanted to show someone, okay, games are more than just the buttons you're clicking, more so than like trying to show, okay, games are art. Like, this is the middle step, right? Like, if they're just really a game is an arcade that I played when I was, in middle school, and that's it, I would say, here's your next step, is look at something like Psychonauts. Like, look how much more goes into a game than just the game mechanics. And then you get them into the big boys, So that's what I'd say I really took away from this.
For one reason... a new that we'll talk about later. I think a new gamer would find this one pretty difficult.
Yeah.
The combat, we'll talk about that later, which I think has some pretty big positives and a pretty big negative, even for a seasoned gamer. It's a little difficult.
But something I'd like to see done more.
Yeah, very interesting ideas. And yeah, we'll talk about that. But take us away, man.
Yeah, let's go. So the first thing I really wanted to touch on is what makes it more than just the gameplay. And I mean, from the first 5 minutes of this game, I was A, having a blast, but B, I already picked up on that. Because you're in the first mind, which is this crazy dentist man. I believe he's from Rhombus of Ruin. I'm not sure, though.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
He is the first mind that you're in, and you start the game in his mind. Well, he's a crazy dentist, so everything has this office imagery, like medical office imagery, combined with disgusting dental imagery.
Yeah, you're in a mouth. The entire world is a mouth.
To the point where there's a disclaimer at the beginning of the game going, hey, this game, tackles difficult topics, mental illness. And the last one it says, and it is not a game for people with severe phobia of like dentists and dental imagery. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What is it? Like, I'm ready to play this game now. And seriously, like the wall, like the doorways are zippers of teeth. Like there's zippers of teeth that you have to unzip.
Yeah, and you're like sloshing around. You're walking on tongues and jumping around like the inside of cheeks. And isn't there like a uvula you have to swing on or something?
You have to, I think, like hit it or something.
Something like that. It's really just everything that makes up a mouth is here.
Is used in some capacity.
Now, later on in the game, there is something really gross where you're on the inside of a face.
Yes, that's one of my favorite parts of the game.
Yeah, you go in and you do this 3 times. You go in the back of someone's head, and it's just this hollowed out inside of a face. And the characters...
Like the muscles.
Yeah, the character is talking to you, and like the mouth is moving, and the tongue is flopping around, which you can walk on. And like the spinal segments.
What you doing in there?
Yeah, and they like the eyes look at you, but they're backwards eyes. It's really gross, but very,
and the
very
tongue,
interesting.
just the flapping tongue.
Yeah,
and you can
it's so
see the
gross.
taste buds, like little pustules. It's pretty wonderful.
Yes.
So all that to say, from the beginning, you can see that there's so much care. Every single collectible, so, I'm not familiar with the first game. I assume it's something similar. They're like almost like these.
Exactly the same. Yeah.
Children's drawings of just. It could be something relevant to the space or the world or the character. For example, when you're in the dentist guy's mind, it'll be teeth or dental tools or someone from his past or just little things that are little, maybe an action, somebody's doing something, and those are collectibles. So every collectible is unique.
Yes, every one of them.
Like, that's the kind of detail and care that we're seeing. In fact, there's a moment later in the game that I'll bring up where you're going down a slide and you're collecting collectibles. It's one of the last sections in this mind where it is I was able to piece together what the whole next section was going to be about because of what those collectibles were.
Oh, they do that several times.
Yeah.
They highlight mechanics through the collectibles, just like the imagery of what they're doing. So they're like, they're floating. They look like neon crayon drawings of something. Anything.
They're shifting a little bit.
Yeah, they move. And sometimes they are taking up real space in the world. Like later on, you're going through this, it looks like some Chinatown sort of situation. And there's boats on a dock. Well, those boats are those neon crayon drawings. They're huge, actual ships. But if you just touch one, it'll disappear and it's a collectible.
Or it'll be like the flag on the end of a flagpole.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're integrated into the world, and then they're used also to highlight your objectives.
And then every room
really nice.
is unique. There's no like repeat rooms or anything, to just kind of hold you over or something. Mm-hmm. Every room is unique. Every room tells a little bit of a story. The details. I mean, you can walk up to, even in that first area, you can look through these office windows that are just, just there to keep you enclosed in the space while you do the fight or whatever. But you can walk up those office windows and find evidence of him being bullied or evidence of, you can just see these little pieces of his brain forming the story you're about to uncover. It's just so good.
It's really good.
Like,
man, the environmental
obviously
storytelling here is really top notch.
I'd agree. It really stands out and is a level of detail and care you don't see in sometimes even one aspect of games these days.
Let alone everything.
Let alone, seriously, everything. It's really special. It's a game that I would recommend to a lot of people, I think, just based on that kind of feel. My wife, unfortunately, didn't get to play the whole game with me. She basically just got to see the beginning, but she was like, I'm really sad that you're going to have to play that without me. Like, I'm really enjoying watching that game.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's the characters, the psychology. But yeah, you actually mentioned something. I'm gonna kind of spurn you off here because I want to hear you talk about it. But you mentioned subtlety to me a little earlier.
Yeah.
And for me, you definitely picked it up on one, but I think, yeah, go ahead.
So, you have likely, if you've heard any coverage about this game, you've heard it talked about. This is not something I typically talk about, but the subtle way that they address mental illness in here, and something that is highlighted throughout the game, but is never, it never gets preachy, and that's its use of consent.
And if you're not
always consenting to going into someone's mind, and everything is addressed, not just subtly, but gently. It's a very gentle game with its concepts. It's overarching concepts. Of course, it's funny, a little brash sometimes, but Raz, the main character, is one of the kindest characters I've seen in any game.
Yeah.
And, just a 10-year-old little boy being able to, well, not always, handle someone's psyche with such care. And it takes the time to show you what happens when you don't. And he does something to someone's mind without asking them, without them even knowing that he's doing it. And he reaps the repercussions of that.
And that's the only time it is strictly reprimanding. the character. Like
yeah, it's very intentionally placed, and the character he's doing it to, it's also very intentional. This character did the same thing when she was younger, before she was recruited to the Psychonauts. In fact, her ability to do that thing, to go into someone's mind and change their mind, that's what you're doing. You're chaining together different thoughts to change the outcome of their outlook on life. So you go into her mind and you see two things connected, risk and danger. And there's a bunch of other ideas like reward, money, fame, and you've got to connect these things like risk is reward, which is money, which is fame. You're supposed to connect those things. And when you leave, she's like really gung-ho about this mission that she was not before. She was very cautious. She wouldn't let you go on the mission because you're kids. But now she's extorting you because you're kids, and it's easy to do that. So then you've got to go back in her mind and undo all of that. And then once you do, you are reprimanded for it. But he learns his lesson and addresses everyone with then on with a very particular level of care. And I like it. It's not preachy, which is something that does bother me a lot. Like you can do things subtly and get it across in meaningful ways.
And I love that they never explicitly go, this is what this person is struggling with. You know what I mean?
Oh, like, never.
Nor do they take it lightly. I think in a game where you are messing with some really heavy subjects and trying to still have a light tone, I think it's really important that you don't use those concepts. You know what I mean? You're not just like going, well, let's just use this very, very cursory surface level idea. Like we have this kind of facile concept of, depression or, anxiety. These like, they're not doing that at all. In fact, I'd argue it's even more realistic because it feels very fluid. It feels like you can't just chunk define it like that all the time.
And I think the best way they do that is later on when you do face anxiety for the first time. And it becomes an enemy. Just the introduction of that and how you're able to overcome anxiety, and then how the particular character that anxiety is affecting. I think it does that entire thing very well.
Yeah, they really. I mean, especially. Yeah, I really enjoy it. I think they do a good job. So. And
honestly, some of this stuff just about got me. It is pretty emotional at times.
Yeah, they do an excellent job. Two areas in particular really, really stood out to me, and we'll get to those. But before we go much further, I guess let's give kind of the pitch of what it's like to just play this game.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that I think stands out as the core principle of the game is going to be the exploration. I found that was most of what was there. There are some more open areas in the overworld that you can explore more thoroughly. I wish I had more time to dig into that, but I did do a couple little side things, very fun, very rewarding to explore. And what you're looking for, it's funny, you're not looking for collectibles, really. I was looking for more content, more characters, more little moments, you know what I mean? Because that's what the game does really well, those little moments and those little interactions.
And that's what it gives you. And then when you meet those, you get little side quests. But none of them are... I mean, I only did a couple. None of them are particularly great. Which will be a running theme here. There's no one aspect of this the game here. It's combat, it's traversal, it's economy, it's mission structure. Nothing is particularly great. Not one single element. But when you put them together and put them in this context, the whole package is so much fun. Really joyous.
Yeah, it's a delight to play. And it's in every area, excluding one, I think it's appropriately brief.
Really? I thought most of them ran a little long.
I guess let me clarify. What I meant is every, I guess, what's the right word? It's hard to clarify. You're right. Like when you actually enter a mind, a dungeon, quote unquote,
sure,
right?
Sure.
If you want to call it that. Yeah, those are pretty long. What I was thinking of though more is your progression through that dungeon, like when it introduces a new concept or a new, like let's say I'm in someone's the director's mind, right? I'm in her mind, and when I it introduces, okay, here's a little lead up area, and then you have this little new mechanic or little puzzle introduced, and then boom, it's done, and then you move on, and then you go to...
Okay, yeah.
Because what stands out the worst is, like, I think of the mail room puzzle. It was really long for just one idea.
Yeah, the best part of that are the thematic ideas. The mechanical ideas are almost non-existent.
Yeah, and I'd argue, aside from those forward moments, those 3 forward moments, everything else, like the actual individual from section to section, not episode to episode, I think are really brief. They'll go right to it. Combat will be introduced real quick, done. Go to the next area.
I suppose.
I think it has a really brisk little pace. But you're right. I think it's a theme for the game too. Just the overall larger sections do drag.
Yes, I felt that all the way through, with the exception of the mailroom. No, so Ford's mind in the mailroom. When you're going into the big robot Ford, the mail sorter, that part was quick enough and really just great to see. Yeah, which is true of most of this. I think
it's a looker.
The whole thing is really gorgeous.
Yeah, and not even just for graphical fidelity. Like, I'm talking purely the ideas, the art design, the imagery is really, really powerful.
But graphically, it's pretty great as well. Yeah. The models are so unique. You've not seen them before. I mean, unless you've played the previous one. But even then, we're talking about 20 years ago. This is 16 or whatever. This looks awesome. I love the art style. I don't know what to call it, but seeing it realized to this level of, as you mentioned, fidelity is awesome. I love seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of leads into some technical issues with the game. You noticed a lot of pop-in, as did I. Yeah,
a lot of texture pop-in on PS5, which is what we played it on. Neither of us have an Xbox.
Surprisingly long loading times for a PS5 game, which is like, the whole shtick for the PS5.
I don't know if it's certainly not the PlayStation 5.
No, not at all.
It's probably the game itself. I would suspect it has similar load times on Xbox, though I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, that was a little bit weird. And then just a couple, just little weird hiccups here or there.
Yeah.
Nothing too egregious, just,
some of the sound is... This one's nitpicking here. There's almost no sound that's really, punchy. The sound mixing, not the voices, but all of the sound effects are pretty lackluster. I thought the sound design overall could have used a little love.
Yeah, you know what else I think of, though? There's there's one sound effect that's kind of like this creak, like a creaking noise that they throw in every once in a while, and every time I thought it was like the fire alarm, like battery dying sound in my downstairs.
I don't know.
I don't know if it's just where my speaker's placed or what, but it's like this little squeaking noise.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, there's basically 3 areas. I saw it in 3 areas, and the first time I found it, I'm like, what is going on? And I pause the game and I wait, nothing there. I resume. What is going on? It's just, and then I realized it was the game. So
I did notice one sound effect that I think is great, and that's his snap. It's a good sound effect. It's a good finger snap. Okay.
Yeah, it's really good. I will have to agree with that. So yeah, that was. Exploration's fun. It's fun to look around. It's not about the rewards so much as it is just being rewarded by what's there and what's to see and people to meet.
But you explore through the vehicle of 3D platforming, which, like a few games we've played in this series, is not that great. Which is true of all of the... I think all of the disparate parts of this game. In isolation... It's nothing special. It's certainly competent platforming. Nothing feels particularly great, especially honestly, the grinding.
It's best at the very first area, I think, like where the dentist's mind. Like you're going down the slide and the ball and you're jumping. Like it's very fast, very urgent. I think it's best there.
You don't do that very often. I can't remember a time you do that again where you go down a slide on your ball.
Yeah, which was so
It takes
fun.
You off of your ball when you slide.
And then there's
in any other
really
section.
Really weird implementations like the bowling ball stuff.
Yeah.
That got a little painful because
It's hard to control. It's pretty hard to control.
Which is the point, and I think it's fun, but there are some pretty precise ones where it's like, okay, can I just...
Do you ever position the camera directly above you?
Sometimes.
That's the best way to get through stuff like that.
Yeah. The problem then, though, is that you can't see your jump height.
Oh, sure. I just hold it completely the whole time, to do the full arc.
For example, there's a part where you have to take the bowling ball and jump on these two thin beams, and one of the beams will move, and you have to balance on the beam and get over to your next area. And there's a little railing on that beam. I'm like, oh, that's nice. That was cool of them to put a little railing there. So I jump over, and you get a little second hop after the ball lands, and it struck me it was the perfect height to go right over that.
Oh, I didn't experience that.
You've got to be kidding me.
But at least the elevator was on at that time.
No, thank God. Yeah, but I mean, just like those little things where it's like, don't put the railing there.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I didn't fall off of that.
Oh, I did. It was like I jumped.
Oh, but also you don't have to jump over it.
Yeah, you do.
Because they connect, and you can just roll on to the next one, and then let it move over.
Sure, but you have to jump to that first beam.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. I just like little weird things.
Anyway,
like
there's plenty of little weird things like that. I don't think the grinding is particularly fun, but it's hard to live up to the grinding from Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
That's good. That's really good.
But the grinding like locks you in, which the game very rarely locks you into something. But like when you jump, you will jump with a certain velocity, a certain speed. Unless there's another rail next to you, in which case let's jump to the next rail. But if you're just trying to jump off, like, I'm going to jump off and float down to this little area, you can't. You're going to launch yourself off in some arbitrary direction.
Yeah, it's not great. It isn't.
So, definitely the platforming is not as good. Like, I wouldn't say any of it is particularly stellar in terms of the actual core gameplay.
Yeah.
I'd say definitely, I think it's obviously put more effort into the combat than the platforming.
Yeah, and the combat is very interesting.
Yeah, do you take?
Sure. I did enjoy the combat all the way through. I don't think the customization is as deep as it looks like on the surface. Most of those upgrades, are very expensive. You're not going to get them all. You're going to get just a few, because the economy in this game is
and it requires
all
levels.
over the place.
Like some badges are locked out by level.
Yeah, so you do level up in this game pretty easily. Like I finished not finished yet, but I'm at the end of the game at like 48 or something, maybe a little higher, a little lower. I don't know exactly, but high 40s I think. And some of those upgrades are, I think one of them is in the low 60s. I could be wrong, but they're pretty high. They require some high leveling to get. None of them are particularly great or
influence gameplay
too much. There's a few that do change the use of a skill completely. One that comes to mind allows your gun, if you don't want to deal damage, it stuns enemies.
That's what I was thinking.
It specifically changes the use of that skill.
And it's not like, it stuns them instead of kills them. It's like there's a stunned status in which they can't move.
Yeah.
Like they're just kind of sitting there, which is honestly pretty useful in the right context if you have a kit for it.
Yeah. There's a couple other things that are drastic changes like that, but very few. Everything else is just slight differences to what you're doing. The one that I always had equipped was on your ball. When you jump up, you can press square to come back down.
Absolutely.
That was there the whole time. I would often switch on the glass cannon, which I think doubles your damage, your output and intake. But everything else is fine, but it's super expensive. So combat is not often enough. It is not around often enough for you to get any reliable income from combat. And even if it was, the resource drop from combat is pretty rare. Most enemies don't drop whatever that resource is. I forget it. Titanium. So the Titanium is, you get it from just walking around the grass and pressing triangle. You can see little spots, but you see little spots and then you press triangle and the Titanium pops out of the ground. So you're just walking around doing that the whole time. It's not fun. It's actually one of my least favorite things about the game is getting Titanium to get health upgrades or the pins, the badges you get.
Yeah.
The whole economy is silly. But combat. Let's get right to combat. I think it's wildly interesting. Not something that that is typically seen in games where a skill, any of the skills, are basically a separate part of you. So in most other games, when you cast a fireball, your body will be used to cast the fireball, out of your hand or whatever. Or if you want to dash away on, let's say you're Green Lantern and you summon some green ethereal horse to run away real quick, that's usually what you are doing now. That's what the model of the character is doing. That's not true for any of the skills here. All of them are completely separate from your body, so can be done all simultaneously with the 4 triggers. So you can equip any of your, maybe it's 10 skills or so, 9, I don't remember. It's 9 or 12. I think it's 9.
I think it's 9.
Because is it a 3x3 grid or 3x4?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think it's 8.
There's no way it's 8 because there's 3. I know there's 3 across, and then there's 3 down on the page.
Oh, yeah, 9. You're right.
So it's either 9 or 12.
It's 9.
9. Okay, sir.
Oh,
you've got
skills. Oh, you're right because it counts melee and stuff too, right?
Oh yeah, melee is a skill.
Yeah.
So that's the only other thing. So
I'm just thinking the ones you can assign. You can assign.
Yeah,
8,
so there's
I'm
8 of
sure.
those, and then melee is a separate one. You're right. So anyway, you can assign any of those 8 psychic skills to any of the 4 triggers. And whenever you use one, it is some sort of astral projection. So you're not summoning a sword that you can swing around. You're, summoning a fireball in front of you, or you can move it around with the right stick. Or you
have a hand that can be it can be pick something up and be holding it. You can throw it whenever. You can throw it in the middle of launching a melee combo or like your little side blasts. You can be rolling on your ball this whole time. I do that. I rolled on the ball for all of combat. So all of it's happening simultaneously. It's a lot of fun. But it's very difficult and does require a level of dexterity that I was not anticipating. I'm not a particularly dexterous person anyway, so this is why I wouldn't recommend it to brand new gamers. I forget if there's a difficulty slider or difficulty setting. If there is, maybe then I would, but it's kind of difficult to wrap your head around, and I see that as both a negative and a positive. It's a really great idea, but it was not anticipated by me at least, and I think is not what most people would be signing up for going into a game that presents itself like this one does. Yeah.
So that's my take on combat. Great idea.
Yeah.
Maybe for a different game.
I agree. I think it's really interesting. I like the ideas there. It's fun to... What I would add to that is every ability impacts different enemies in different ways, and even the enemies, when they get hit in a certain way or respond to an attack, will actually be able to hurt other enemies. So the easy example is if you blast, I forget what they're called, regrets. They're called regrets, and they have these little weights. Yeah. And if you hit them, they'll drop the weight, and it'll still hurt you if they drop it on you. But if you have it so it drops on the enemies, it'll do damage to all the enemies. Another example is there's little globby guys that are particularly weak to fire, but they'll spread the fire on their little globules they leave behind, burning other enemies. So you can kind of mix and match based on the situation and make sure you're managing your abilities right to get the most damage out of not only what your kit, but what the enemies are as well. There's some thought there. Well implemented. Nothing special, but again, well done.
Yeah, it's good combat. I had fun. It was just a little more difficult than I anticipated.
Yeah, and that's really the whole game. I mean, there's some optional stuff, a little bit of open exploration in these larger areas, but for the most part, that's the game, and you'll be doing that for 12 hours. Not much change. You'll get a new ability here or there, but really, that's not the focus of the game. Like we said at the beginning, it's much more about the characters and the overall design and presentation of the world. So it's good stuff. This is where I'm going to mark for spoilers.
Yeah, it's a good time for that.
So moving forward, just be aware. This will be full spoilers from here on out. We don't know the ending, so there's that.
Yeah.
But yeah, full spoilers otherwise. So I guess let's start. Tyler, what was your favorite area in the game?
Favorite area? So the level itself?
Take that as you will.
Okay, well, I've got two different favorite things.
Okay.
So my favorite gameplay area, I think, is actually tied. Maybe the last three. Oh, it's really hard. They just get better. With the exception of, there's one odd one in the middle that is not very good, but they otherwise get consistently better, and I'm having a hard time choosing between the mailroom, the library. I think it might be the mailroom, but also the pirate islands was really good.
Yeah, that was fun.
All three of those are solid. Gut reaction, let's say the mailroom. It's visually spectacular. Gut reaction, let's say the mailroom. But that's my favorite gameplay environment. My favorite moment in the game, though, is the another section just before that mailroom level, and it's the story, because the actual gameplay level in there is the super repetitive one
and it's
that you
long.
talked about. It's very long.
I think it might be the longest.
Quite possibly. It might be.
You know what makes it better?
Jack Black. Correct.
Yeah, man.
So you have as an intern, your mentor is the mail guy, because all the other actual mentors were, taken up by other interns. The mail guy, however, has had his brain removed.
He also has the best design of any character.
He's so silly, just such a huge pot belly.
Yeah, with the
cul-de-sac.
Cul-de-sac hair, and just this really wide face, really tiny eyes, and a very thin chin.
He's very odd.
Yeah,
which is true of most of the characters. So he's missing a brain. And later on in the game, well, really, you can choose when to do this. The entire middle of the game, there are six large sections that you can choose to do in any order. And you finally find him a brain. And his brain, it's not his, it's somebody else's brain. This brain has been dormant for 30 years or so. It has almost lost complete consciousness. And it comes from like a quarter vending machine, basically, of just a bunch of jars of brains that one of the scientists keeps. So you get one out of there and you go into it. And again, this goes back to that gentle consent. There's no way for the brain to consent to Raz going into the brain, but he's like, I really hope he's okay with it, and goes in, and he's like tiptoeing, brain, are you there? And it's just this black void, which is unlike anything you've seen so far. It's been these crazy levels that are all just the shattered psyches of all the people that you're entering into, but this is just a black void. And you see this little white wisp start to form, and you have injected stimuli into this brain's consciousness, and it's coming back to life. And it doesn't know anything. So you have to teach it new sensations. And you do that. But this is when anxiety sets in. He doesn't know what anything is, doesn't know what color is, what taste is, hearing. It's all happening as though it's happening for the first time. And he's having a lot of fun with it at first, but then it's too much. So you go back into the brain to confront the wisp, and he has shut everything out again. But there's in this black void, you start to see this sort of like nebula you can walk on, and it goes to this giant, well, it kind of looks like a door, but it's part of the black void, and it's as though someone's knocking on it, and you can see this little bit of light shining through every time someone knocks on it. And anxiety bursts through that door. You have to fight it, and then you break out into...
It's like it's a panic attack.
Yeah. He has a couple panic attacks, and just the way it's presented, it was incredible to me. The idea of this consciousness forming was an awesome idea, and when you open that door, you come out of one of the collectibles that you find in the world, which are these little like dog-looking safes that run around. You have to attack them to open it, and there are repressed memories in there. And that's what the consciousness has been inside of this whole time. And so you break out of it into this like Inception sort of situation. You're inside of the brain whose consciousness is locked inside of a repressed memory. You break out of it, and so now you're in another memory, and then you have to go into the consciousness of the constructs of these memories from the consciousness that you're inside of.
Yeah.
It's great. It's really awesome. And it's also, he's tripping the whole time, because he was around in the 70s when the Psychonauts were being formed. Of course, they're hippies from the 70s, and it captures that whole feel really well. So everything is really psychedelic. You're tripping on mushrooms. The sides of the screen start to distort, and then the edges of objects distort as well if you stare at them too long. It's great. It's presented very well, but the gameplay there is some of the worst in the whole game, unfortunately. But that's my rant on what my favorite story part is, and then the gameplay is later in the game.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Yeah, my favorite part is definitely there's a cooking show segment.
Yeah,
this is a good one. By far, not only from gameplay standpoint, but also they have this little clincher ending that's just perfect.
Oh, it's so good.
It's perfect.
That's my second favorite part.
It's the ending to that. Good.
Yeah, it's
so good. So basically, there's a guy... and he, Compton? I have a note here.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I have a note here. Yeah, Compton.
Compton Boole.
Yeah, Compton Boole. Cool guy. He can speak to animals and stuff. So he, again, too much stimuli. Like, anytime there are animals around, he can't control. Like, he just hears all of them. All the time.
And all of these characters, we should have mentioned this before, all of these characters are the founding members of the Psychonauts. All of the brains you're going into, with the exception of the first two. But later on, you're sort of getting the gang back together. But all of them have had this traumatic experience, which I think maybe the first game touches on. The big bad, Maligula, they fought a war with her many years ago, and for the most part, disbanded. Some of them have gone missing.
They all carry some sort of guilt or failure from this moment. And it is kind of a lot of the... Not for everyone, but for a lot of people, it's the at the heart of their trauma.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have with this guy, he basically blames. He kind of blames himself that he that he couldn't beat her. He tried really hard. He was valiant. He fought, but he couldn't do it. Basically, and other people struggle with that. But what's cool is for him, and it's never explicitly stated, which I love, but it's the rest of the Psychonauts, specifically it's Ford, the current director, and one other person. Otto.
Yeah.
So those who are still at the base, basically, he kind of feels like they hold him responsible for it. That's what he feels, and they communicate this by making them judges on a cooking show that he has to cook for.
Yeah.
And they'll basically give a rating on, how good his dish was. So you have to help him prepare, because he's like, I can't do this. He's really having trouble. He's not able to hold himself together. He has zero confidence in himself at all. So you're having to help him. You kind of cover for him when he can't explain his dish well. Little things like that.
I think he's probably one of if not the best character in the game.
Oh, he's
just presented.
Yeah. Him and Ford, I think, are definitely the best.
Yeah, I like Ford a lot.
Well, Ford it's easier with Ford because he has more screen time.
Yeah, but I mean the story arc for that particular character, and then the way they're presented. Like, obviously, I like the story for Hammer. What is it? Hammer? What's his name? Helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that story arc better, but it's way more grounded. And the character himself, the voice actor, the animation, just the entire presentation is probably the best when you're looking at Boole.
And the three judges are goats. So like the whole idea that they will eat anything, right? But they're super picky for some reason, and it's really good. And you basically pick audience members, which are foods, out, and you like blend them or like
they're so excited for like their god to finally cook them.
My favorite is you have to make bacon for the last dish for the first section. And the cutting board is a pig machine who cuts it, and they're like, "Oh, you gotta cut up an onion." You bet, boss. Anything, the action cutter. He's like the action chop, and so you gotta pull his action arm to make him chop. And so you're chopping out these vegetables. He's like, "Oh, then you gotta cut up this pig and fry up some bacon." And he goes, "Wait, what?" And the whole rest of the time you're like, "All right, go." Wait, no, I'm still not comfortable with this. Like he's having this little moment of, no, and he like chops the little pig. It's so
very
good.
funny.
It's really, really good. All that to say, it builds basically into the second section where he now is separated from you because he's kind of gained confidence on that last dish. He explained the dish confidently. He's gaining more footing in himself. He doesn't care what those think about him, and that's kind of what he's coming to. And he's separated from you, and you have to throw him food through these vents so he can cook it. Which is the boss fight, which is the 3 puppets who have been so gorged with food. Yeah. They're vomiting on you, and so you have to like dodge that.
It's gross. Oh, the sound effect. I mentioned the sound design. It's pretty good here.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
It's gross.
It's disgusting. And so basically you have to pick up from their vomit the food ingredients that he needs to cook his dish. So once he completes the dish, he sends it, and each time he completes one, you throw it into the mouth of one of these puppets. Right, because basically they're these little puppets, like hand puppets. That's what they are. They're little hand puppets that represent the judges of this game. And so you have to throw as much food as you can into one of their mouths, and then they'll explode, and you keep going. Well, and he's gaining confidence more and more each time. And it's funny to keep the boss fight difficult. Instead of just losing them, they like get replaced with like kitchen utensils. Yeah, like a blender and a spatula.
Yeah, so like a blender, like a little hand blender that the remaining goats puke on while it's being held down and spinning,
splattering everywhere.
It's gross. It's really
disgusting. Gross. So when you get to the last one, it's the goat hand puppet that represents Ford, and he's and when you beat him, you throw all the food in his mouth. It looks like he's about to explode, but he condenses back down to normal size, and he's removed as a hand puppet to reveal Compton's hand, right?
And you're just standing there next to him.
And you're standing next to him, and it pulls back. And then my favorite touch, he's like, "That was a good job, everyone. Let's get cleaned up, okay? We have a good time, He's like directing the show. So the director previously was, I forget the guy's name, but the Truman, the current leader of the Psychonauts. He was running the show, and now he's not. Now Compton's running the show, and he's telling you to put it away, and he's fully back in control of himself. Like he's stopped giving his value and his worth to a fictional idea of his friends. Yeah. And it's
so good, man. And they do this a lot. This is the best area. It's just the ideas of the other story arc that are my favorite. This is the best part of the game.
Yeah, for sure.
It really is awesome.
Yeah, I love it so much. Definitely stands out for me. So I'm excited to finish the game. Yeah, for sure.
And they do this a few times, like those sort of trippy perspective shifts where you're fighting this giant hand puppet, and then the hand puppet is taken off, and you're standing next to the person who is wearing the hand puppet without any sort of cut. It looks great. It's really, but it visually
feels
stunning.
Right. Like you're never lost. Like
it's really, really good.
Yeah, everything's very carefully constructed. Man, it's good stuff.
It's a really good game.
So who would you? I guess unless you want to cover more, who would you recommend this game to?
Pretty much anyone except for a new gamer. Now, that's unless there is a difficulty setting, I don't remember. Only because of the combat. The combat is actually pretty difficult. I don't think a brand new gamer would be able to handle it. But just like, what did we play first? It Takes Two. I think this game is good for just about anybody.
Yeah.
There's no one Yeah, I'll say it again. Unless it's a new gamer, I don't think there's anyone I wouldn't recommend this to. Unless there are people that just don't like these games. There are people that only play Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed. Sure, you're not going to recommend anything to them.
Yeah, sure. Except Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed.
Sure. But anybody else that's pretty open to playing games, yeah, I'll recommend this to you.
Yeah, I agree. If it's someone, especially I know who likes more... what's the word? Like, people who really find a lot of value in story in video games, people find a lot of value in art and, environments. The kind of people who play Assassin's Creed Odyssey just to, walk slowly around and look at things.
Yeah.
Those people. That's the kind of people I'd recommend this game to. People like Dark Souls, people who like that environmental storytelling, I'd recommend this game. They'd pull more out of this than I could, Yeah, there's quite a few people, I think. There's a lot of different perspectives you can come from and enjoy this game. So, yeah, I think so as well.
It's really good. And, just back to the story, man, we've both mentioned one, but also the librarian. She's great. Having to, she's repressing all of the versions of herself that make her her. And there's one bitter old version of herself that the rest of her understands they can't live without. That's part of her, but it's become the dominant version of her, and you have to free the other three versions of her to allow them all to live in harmony.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. It's all really good, man.
Yeah.
And it does get pretty emotional. I myself have not struggled with much of any of this. Maybe there's a couple things in there, but all of these different ideas of mental illness, or maybe just different struggles. They might not all be illnesses, but this is not something that I have had to deal with. But I know plenty of people who have talked about anxiety and seeing it in, struggle with clinical depression and things. To see it represented that way, and if you have a particular sort of literacy about you, not everyone might be able to pick up on it. They just typically wouldn't look for that.
Sure.
Like Katie, Katie's sitting there watching me play this game, and she hasn't had the whole context of the game, but even if she did, she might not understand all those nuances, like pulling off that damn glove, dude.
It's so good.
So good. You might not catch it all, but for someone
I certainly didn't.
That is looking for stuff like that in most of the media they consume, it's here. Yeah. There's a lot of it, and it's really, really good. I gotta recommend this. Play it as soon as possible.
Yeah. So, man, this is the wrap-up of our launch for our now recurring segment for Nontrndo platformers.
It'll probably be a little while before we have another one.
Yeah, and
but there'll be standalone episodes.
Probably 2D next time for a little bit, like standalone 2D episode maybe. Or
sure, yeah. We want to play Rayman as well. Prince of Persia's coming out early next year, so we might accompany that with another platformer.
Yeah,
but certainly play that.
I mean, I guess so. The first question, obviously, what of all the ones we played, what was your favorite?
My favorite is still It Takes Two, which I know you don't agree with. You don't even think it's a good game. You basically hate that game. I'm just kidding. That's not true.
I think it's a good game.
Yeah, it's a pretty mad game. Unlike the story in this game and the themes it's dealing with, I have dealt with the themes in It Takes Two, and it hits me very close to home. I've seen both of those people. Washed up loser dad, a mom who works well. Both of my parents actually had both of the aspects that the characters in It Takes Two has, and they just. And honestly, I've been scared that I might embody a little bit of Cody as well, who is a bit of a loser. Though I'm sure if I had a kid, I would also be like Cody, and just have so much fun. But I've been scared that I've embodied a bit of Cody as well. So those themes hit me, I would suspect, much harder than they hit you. And I also really liked the co-op aspect of it.
That's definitely the highlight.
And also absolutely. The platforming in that game, I think, is much better than in Psychonauts.
I would argue that it's one of the strongest ones we've played in terms of just core platforming.
I think it is the strongest because, Ratchet and Clank I now wouldn't say it's a platformer. The next Ratchet and Clank that comes out, I probably wouldn't have it in a 3D platformer episode. And then Prince of Persia, we liked a lot. The ideas were great, but a lot of them fell short. So yeah, I think it's the best 3D platformer we played.
Yeah, in terms of core platforming, I think I have to agree.
Yeah. In terms of the platforming, yes. It's my favorite that we played, but I know there are some that you liked way more. So what about you?
Oh, definitely Prince of Persia 2008.
Really?
Definitely. I couldn't... Yeah, and I think by a pretty big margin over the rest. I'd say probably Psychonauts. No, I don't know. Yeah, Psychonauts next, even above Ratchet and Clank. I just think because of that core emotion. I don't know. Different reasons.
Well, I'm actually not including Ratchet and Clank anymore.
Oh, okay.
Even though we played it for the series,
they'd be interchangeable on my list because one is just so good at that core gameplay. Like, it's just that addicting Ratchet and Clank loop of just playing the game and getting better guns and,
Yeah, it's probably second. If I were to include it, it'd probably be second because it is so much fun. But if we're talking about everything that a 3D platformer is doing... I would separate it.
Yeah. Well, for me, regardless, it's Prince of Persia 2008. And it wouldn't have been if it wasn't for that ending and just how well it sat. And then the epilogue, a lot of the ideas coming to fuller fruition in that epilogue. I really, really have a lot of respect for what that game tried to do and where it did do it, if that makes sense.
I'm happy you enjoyed it because I've loved that game. This is my third playthrough. I played it twice around launch, maybe 2010, and I've been preaching about it for a while. I am not as hot on it as I once was. I think you liked it more this playthrough than I did, but I certainly got that experience as well. Though this is my first time playing the epilogue, but it was the ending for me that really got me, and the ideas in the gameplay, which didn't always hold up. But they were there.
Yeah, I really liked that game, and it fits me. The game that's imperfect but has so much there, you know, like those are just the kind of games I tend to love the most anyway. So, yeah, that's probably what I'd pick. You know what I really took away from this series though is that, like, trying to pin down like a platformer is really
it's hard,
difficult.
It's hard. I mean, Kana was going to be in this game, so this is one thing I've learned as well. You can't really judge. Something, I mean, it's such an old trope, can't judge a book by its cover, but Kano was on this list. And I was like, is that a platformer? And your response was, it definitely gives me those vibes. So I went with it. And it was, if it weren't for the delay, it would have been on this list. That's not a platformer. No. Ratchet and Clank is not a platformer anymore, maybe. Those older ones might be much closer.
I don't know. I went back and looked at some of the older ones again, and that does not look like much of a platformer, man.
Yeah, so, and didn't we play one more that wasn't quite there as well? What do we play left? Oh, Beyond Good and Evil. Yeah, so definitely got to look at the gameplay more.
Yeah.
There are things, Beyond Good and Evil is the biggest example. That is not even remotely a platformer.
Yeah, not even a little bit.
Yeah. That's actually the one I'm happiest we played, though. It's one of the games I'm happiest we played this year. Just to check it off the list and know where I stand on that game, and I know why people like it, and some of it's great,
and I sure as hell know why I don't like it.
Yeah, correct.
That's amazing. No, I gotta agree, and it's just such a. I have a different take on the genre of platforming than I did before starting this series, which I didn't think was going to be the case, but I definitely see it as a very broad genre. I see it as really something that is what I see most, and I think this is what I really, really take away, is the same reason that I thought Kano would be a platformer based on the vibes. It's that the spirit of that time, where platformers were the king, right? 64, PlayStation 2. Like, the 64 to PlayStation 2, I'd say, is really where we get...
A lot in PS2.
Yeah, a lot. And that spirit and that time, I guess, the zeitgeist of that era has carried over to where even a game, like Kana, would maybe even be called a platformer still because you jump and it looks like that. You know what I mean? Like, because that era, that zeitgeist, so many people loved it. A lot of people who grew up playing that are developers now. You have these ideas of like modern game design and gameplay styles, but with all these old aesthetics and I guess game feel, how it feels to run and jump around, even if you're not doing that to platform. And I think that's what I really took away from.
Yeah, you're right.
This.
The feeling of running and jumping as being integral, not in a way that running and jumping is integral in Spider-Man or in what's the other superhero one with the lightning, Infamous. Yeah, not
Prototype.
Not in that way. Sure. Not in that way, but there's something that carries... I don't know how to explain it. It carries a particular weight. The perspective is
the
correct.
The softness of it, like, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. It's something I couldn't quantify.
It's hard to.
It's there.
But if you looked at a character running and jumping in an open world game and Kana running and jumping, one is obviously different.
Yeah, very much so. I get
that. I wouldn't classify those as platformers, but I see what has been carried through. And I think what really stands out in platformers for me is not the heart of the gameplay. We've just talked about that, but also the heart of the stories and the aesthetic. Like, with Mario aside, you get pretty heartfelt and family friendly stories in most platformers.
That's a really good point. When I think of a Nintendo platformer, it's always the gameplay, always the core gameplay, always the platform.
Everybody else is about the characters.
Everything else is about this. It's even called a character platformer.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really good point. Yeah, I'm thinking, I mean, even Crash and Spyro have these just... Well, maybe not Spyro 1, but, have these just zany characters and bizarre little plots. And, you're right. That is interesting. I'm going to have to think on that.
That's my biggest takeaway.
I think that's a good takeaway. I'm going to have to think on that. That's good stuff, man. Well, I'm glad we did this. Definitely very glad that we did this series.
Yeah, it was a bit long. Next time we do a series...
Oh, yeah.
Probably just 3 episodes instead of
max.
5.
Like 3
we were going to
max.
do 6. Because some of these are not good.
Yeah, I am done with platformers for a little while. Unless it's like, I could boot up Odyssey. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, this kind of platformer, a Nontrndo platformer, I'm good for a while.
I could play It Takes Two again pretty easily. If Katie wanted to play or something.
Sure.
I bet you'd sit down and play it easily enough if Amanda wanted to play.
Sure, maybe a chapter here or there. Definitely not like a, let's go 2 weeks, let's do this. Like, I'm done. Definitely done. But I'm glad we did it, though, and I'm looking
happy
forward
to be
when
moving
we
on.
Bring a new episode in with this series. I'm excited.
Yeah, Prince of Persia will probably be the next one. Sometime next year.
Yeah, maybe we do a Ubisoft. We play a Rayman. Prince
probably that and 2. You'd not played 2, right?
I've not played 2. I've only played Hoodlum Havoc.
Yeah.
Which is...
It's great. It's a lot of fun.
It's
a lot of fun. But, we mentioned last week that I'd watched that graphics comparison. I had no idea the PS2 version was... what it was, the sort of upgrades it got. The Dreamcast version added some additional content, which I could do without, but the visual upgrades of the PS2 version, even over the PC, brand new effects, brand new textures that, sure, would look better if they were on PC, but are not. So that's the version I'll be playing. And I'd recommend you check that one out as well.
For sure.
Though the 3DS version you have, that does have the upgrades from the Dreamcast.
We'll see.
Mm-hmm. So, I think that's going to be it for us. We are going to be coming back next episode, and we're going to be hitting that horror genre pretty hard.
The horror series, guys.
I'm so excited.
It's that mad October.
Yes. So we're going to do 4 episodes back to back. We'll still have the 2-week break between this and the first of the horror series, but from then it'll be 4 episodes back to back all month of October. We're going to be playing what do we got, like 12 games or something?
Yeah, a lot.
Because there's 6, 7, 8,
do you want to
10,
drop
12,
some of the names?
12. Yeah, he'll be playing Inside for the first time. There's some really small games like Possum Country,
Faith.
and Faith. We're finally jumping into Silent Hill. Neither of us have played 1 or 2, so we'll be playing that.
Yeah, very excited.
I'm so excited. Last year we played what has become one of my absolute favorite games with Observer. I'm excited to finally play the Medium.
Yep.
And we'll also be doing an episode looking at some games that are obviously taking after trying to continue the legacy of PT.
Yeah, so we got Visage and Made of Skur.
Made of Skur looks like it's venturing a little further than Visage is. But
Visage is... Well,
is
I guess it's just I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I wish Addison Road was still around.
Yeah, that looks nuts.
Even if you go look at it today, what they were doing on Unreal 4 is unreal.
Terrifying.
It's so good. But alas. And we will be holding off on the last 3 chapters of Hitman 2. We don't have time. Playing 12 games in 4 weeks is a big deal. Those 3 of those games are shorter than an hour, with Faith 1 and 2 and Possum County. Those are each 45 minutes, I think.
Which, just so everyone knows, yes, we know it's country.
No, I think it's county, and I said country. I don't know, because I've just said both.
I'm pretty sure it's country, and I'm from the South, guys.
That's right. It's country.
Possum County.
Possum County.
Yeah, Possum County.
Yeah, I think it is country.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna look it up.
Possum Country.
Yeah, you're gonna look
it's
it up.
Such a great title. Yeah. But those are all Game Boy. No, Possum Country is Game Boy. Has a Game Boy aesthetic.
And
the
Faith
other ones,
has Atari.
Yeah.
Like
that's very interesting.
Old school Atari, and it's obviously not like it probably could never actually run on an Atari, but like it's that.
I don't
style
know.
Of
I mean, people make. Atari is still being developed for today. You can buy cartridges.
Yeah, is Halo, right? Didn't the guy did Halo on Atari?
I think so. I'm sure Faith could run on...
okay, yeah.
Or maybe just like whatever the next generation of that is, but I wouldn't be surprised if a cartridge came out.
Sure.
I think, what are they called? Strictly Limited had a Game Boy release like 2 months ago.
That's amazing.
And I thought Possum Country was getting a Game Boy release.
That would be, dude, I'd play that all day.
Yeah. I wish. But we'll be back with next episode. It's going to be packed 6 games, including the smaller ones we've already mentioned. And we'll be doing a variety 6-pack from one of my new favorite breweries. But that's not till next episode. We want to thank you for joining us. Maybe consider giving us a like and some comments down in the comment section. That's right, do that motion. And check us out on Discord. You can get there through our $2 tier on Patreon. We'd love to hear, all your memories, your favorite memories of 3D platformers, your favorite moments in Psychonauts, Psychonauts 2 specifically, and also just to have you join the community. Come play some games.
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll see you next time. And don't forget to share what you love with who you love.